This is going to be 2 to the 6th power. And then here, notice you have 1 base and 2 powers. When you have 1 base and 2 powers, that is this rule right here. You have 1 base, 2 powers like that, then you multiply those exponents, okay? So that would be f to the, and we'd have to multiply those, and 4 times 6 is 24. Now, we can't leave 2 to the 6, so that's where you'd go to your calculator and you'd go 2, this up arrow, 6, and 2 to the 6 is 64. So this would be 64 f to the 24th power. Now, if I look at this one, notice I have, basically this is 10 times 10. And 10 times 10 is 100. Now again, with these variables, there's no power here. So what I can do is just think of this as x squared times x to the first. What would that be? When you have 2 bases, do we add or multiply these? If you have x squared times x to the first, do you add or do you multiply? Add. So that would be x to the third. And then we have y to the third times y to the eighth. And again, we have 2 bases, so we add those. So it'd be y to the 11th. Then, if I look at this one, okay, so I was kind of explaining this before. If you have 2 q's on top and 7 q's on the bottom, how I would do this is I would subtract these. 7 minus 2 is 5. And you put q to the 5th power where the bigger one is. So the 7 is on the bottom, so my q to the 5th is on the bottom. Does everybody understand that? Then we have 4 r's on top and 3 on the bottom. So we'd subtract 4 minus 3 is 1. So that means I have an r or an r to the first. Since 4 is bigger than 3, I would put that r to the first on top. Okay. If by chance, just so you guys know, say that both things had ended up on the bottom, then you would have to put a 1 on the top. You can't just leave it like that. But in ours, we had one thing on top, one thing on the bottom, so we didn't have to worry about that. Now, this is something we haven't talked about too much yet, but this is a fraction. So with these numbers there, you treat that just like a fraction. So you can do that in your head. You can think, what is the biggest number that goes into 6 and 18? And 6 does. So 6 goes in here 1 time, 6 goes in here 3 times. I didn't get rid of that minus. So when you have a negative like that, you can put the minus out front. You could put the minus on top. You could put the minus on the bottom. It doesn't matter. Just so you know that it's negative. Now, we still have that 3 on the bottom. And I could put that 1 on the top, but I wouldn't have to. Okay. Now, if I have 5 n's on top and 1 n on the bottom, what would I do with that? How many would I have left? 4, and where would I put them? Would I put n to the 4th on the top or bottom? On top. So you'd go 5 minus 1, which is 4. 5 is bigger than 1, so you have n to the 4th on top. Now you have 3 x's on top, 7 on the bottom. So how many x's would we have left? 4, and where would you put them? Bottom, thank you. Right? So that would be your answer. And again, you don't have to have the 1, and the minus could go on top, it could go on the bottom, and as long as you have it. Now this one here, the 24 divided by 3 ends up being just a whole number. So 24 divided by 3 is just 8, and that gets rid of that. Now we have 1 W on top and 3 on the bottom. So I would go 3 minus 1, which is 2. And where would I put that W squared? On the, I'd have to put it on the bottom because 3 is bigger than 1. And then here I have 7 Z's on top, 5 Z's on the bottom. So I'd go 7 minus 5, which is 2. 7 is bigger than 5, so I'd have Z squared on top. Okay. Then let's go to this last page. Okay. For this one, again, you'd have to simplify that fraction. And again, that minus sign is on the bottom. I typically, if I have a minus sign, put it out front, but there really isn't a right or wrong place to put that. Now, 12 over 9, to simplify that, you think what's the biggest number that goes into 12 and 9? And it's 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times, 3 goes into 9 3 times. And again, if you went to your calculator, if you went negative 12 divided by 9, this is a graphing calculator, and you'd go math, enter, enter, it would tell you negative 4/3. Okay, now we have 8 M's on top, 1 M on the bottom. So I subtract 8 minus 1 is 7, and that M to the 7th goes on top. And then 6 Y's on top, 4 here, I subtract, I get 2. 6 is bigger than 4, so the Y squared goes on top. Okay. Now, this one right here has those negative exponents. So how I would do this one, I would, when I write it, I would put the negative ones. If it's in the top, I'd move it to the bottom. If it's in the bottom, I'd move it to the top. So this X to the negative 2nd is going to come to the bottom. The Y here is going to stay on the top. The X to the 4th is going to stay on the bottom. The Y to the negative 1, to make it positive, I'm going to put it on the top. Okay, so I just move my negative ones, if they're in the top, to the bottom, bottom to the top. Now, when you have 2 of the same base, you add exponents. So that would be Y to the 2nd. And on the bottom, again, you have 2 of the same base, so you add those, and it would be X to the 6th. Now this one here, we have to take everything and square it. If it's a number like 3, you're going to square the 3. Do you guys remember what to do if you have a power of a power? Like if you have 8 to the 3rd squared, what do you do with these? Do you add them or do you multiply? Multiply. So when you only have one base, this is a power of a power, so you multiply, and that's 8 to the 6th. Then on the bottom, this 2 is also squared. And the B, that's really like B to the 4th squared, which we multiply, and we'd get B to the 8th. Okay, now 3 squared is 9. 2 squared is 4. And 9 over 4 is reduced. You can't simplify that. We have A's on top and B's on the bottom, so we can't simplify that. So this is my answer. Now this last one, if you ever get where the whole thing is to the negative 1 power, what I think is the easiest way to get rid of that -1 is just take the top and bottom and switch it, okay? That will get rid of this -1. So I'm gonna bring the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. So regardless what's in there, if the whole thing is to a -1 power, just flip flop the top and bottom and then reduce. Now you could rewrite this and bring this a to the -3rd to the bottom. So this is a to the 3rd on the bottom, a to the 2nd on the bottom, and b. And on the top, we have b squared. Okay. Now, what happens if you have 2 b's on top and 1 b on the bottom? What would you have left? Just a b where? On the top. And what is a to the 3rd times a to the 2nd? A to the, do you add those or multiply? 5th, right? You add them. So your assignment today then is going to be a worksheet, and I will hand that out, and I'll also try to find the key to that. And then we'll continue on in these notes tomorrow.